Well, welcome to TechBrew. My name is Tom Chapman. I'm the host of TechBrew, our virtual Council Bluffs TechBrew that has been taking place really since the beginning of the pandemic. Kyle McMahon, who is our guest today from TractorZoom, asked me how many times had we done this. I think this is our 6th time doing an online TechBrew, and they seem to be going pretty well. I've been pretty happy with the amount of people that are both attending, but also the variety of folks that we can get from around the country to join us. TechBrew is brought to you all through the Technology Association of Iowa, which is based in Des Moines and has as a goal to grow the tech industry across the entire state. I work for a company called Chapman & Company. We work with a variety of folks in Western Iowa, particularly Advanced Southwest Iowa, the Iowa West Foundation, and others that are looking to grow an entrepreneurial ecosystem in Western Iowa and specifically Southwest Iowa. We also normally meet at Full Fledged Brewing in Council Bluffs, and so I want to put a little plug out there. We do have free beer to Full Fledged. So if you are interested in getting gift cards to Full Fledged, I have some with me, and if you just in the chat or directly to me, I'll put my email address. Send me your email. I will send you a gift card to Full Fledged so that you can go in and get a free beer. Most of all, I just wanted to say thanks for being here, and particularly thanks to Kyle McMahon for joining me today. So Kyle is the founder of a company called TractorZoom, and as I did more research into TractorZoom, I was really intrigued. It is a company that specializes in auctions, particularly auctions associated with farm equipment. It grew out of sort of the entrepreneurial spirit that has been bred in the McMahon family. Kyle is a 3rd-generation entrepreneur. In addition, he has strong ties to the ag economy and continues to be a farmer in Southeast Iowa. So I'm excited to have somebody from the other side of the state come over here to Western Iowa and tell us a little bit about some of the interesting things that are going on in ag tech in Iowa. So Kyle, was that a good introduction, or do you want to say more about yourself and TractorZoom?
Yeah, Tom, thanks for having me on. Look forward to the communication and the conversation today with yourself as well as the rest of the audience. I think you hit the nail on the head. I grew up in Southeast Iowa, little town of Fairfield. Didn't actually grow up on a farm. My folks were in the manufacturing industry, building refrigeration equipment for supermarkets. So they probably look at me a little bit weird of why I want to get into agriculture, especially at these not phenomenally profitable times, and more or less technology and data. But yeah, it's just that's the new industry that's going forward, and wanted to certainly be part of it. And my background into agriculture was after Iowa State, actually joined a company called Summit Farms, Summit Agriculture Group out of North Central Iowa. Large diversified farming operation, and working on their farmland private equity division, and did many farmland transactions, buying and selling, just kind of a farmland jockey. And that's kind of how the idea stumbled upon TractorZoom and Iron Comps.
So tell us a little bit about TractorZoom. What is it that your company does?
So TractorZoom is an online search engine for heavy machinery auctions. And then we track the market, and we're a database for market trends. A couple of analogies. Think of Auto Traders advertising cars, and Kelley Blue Book is valuing cars. From the valuation, we do something similar where we effectively advertise machinery auctions, and that's a catalyst for us collecting data. And then we use all of that data to value farm machinery in a software as a service subscription-based model on Iron Comps, which would kind of be like Kelley Blue Book.
So you guys are based in West Des Moines?
Yeah, our office is in Urbandale.
But you started in Gravitate, or I was talking to Jeff Wood today, and he mentioned that you had been in the Gravitate space at one point.
Yeah, I'm sure we were a thorn in Jeff's side, because we started in what the first employee I had, his name's Zach Sandvig. He's our CFO, comes from the construction space and financial space. He and I started November 1st, together at what we call the dungeon inside of West Des Moines' Gravitate office. And a month later, we hired another person. And bless Jeff Wood for being patient with us as we hopped around offices as we continued to grow. But I think we ended up having 5 or 6 offices, almost every office inside of Gravitate West Des Moines before we finally grew out of it.
And so I'm going to ask this question like I'm dumb. I have some suspicions, but I'm curious. You've been growing quite a bit. So you've raised multiple rounds of venture capital, and obviously there's something that's working with what you're doing. Why are you growing? What is it that you are providing to the market that isn't there right now?
So the original thesis of what we're doing, Tractor Zoom, it's a one-stop shop for auction companies to market their upcoming machinery sales. It's an event, and then it's a one-stop shop for farmers to be able to find the machinery they want. It really didn't exist in the market. It was the way auction companies marketed their sales was it was a fragmented marketing industry. There was no easy to use platform that really aggregated a lot of it. When we started in 2017, 80% of auction companies' budgets were still going to print media, so newspapers. And with logistics today, you can ship equipment all across the country into Canada. So why would you not open up your auction up to people really worldwide? And so that was kind of a hit right off the bat. Fortunately, I had a lot of connections in the industry to get it started, and it's a really supply and demand driven marketplace. And it was challenging to get the ball started. It always felt like you're failing, but it just started growing time and time again. And by the end of 2018, I think we had maybe 60 auction companies, 70 auction companies signed up advertising in Tractor Zoom. And in the last year and a half, we're all up to 420 now. It's just that kind of snowball effect of a supply demand driven marketplace, chicken and the egg, where we finally have the audience, you start to have the supply and the demand that match up, and things scale a bit more quickly, which has allowed us to collect all the data we need from a equipment valuation standpoint to help people understand what their machines are worth, more on a real-time transparent basis. And so we were able to get iron comps to market, which is where we really generate a majority of our revenue, and just started scaling that here in 2020.
So tell me a little bit more about that. What is it? I don't know.
It's a database of market trends. So the way a customer would use it, we currently sell that to banks and dealerships. Okay. And we've been doing that for about 7 months. The best way to put it is it's a subscription-based model to access to our data. And the way we've been getting that to market is first through banks and dealerships. And the way they use it is to really understand the industry market trends, what's going on. So, naturally COVID hit, it threw a wrench into corn and soybean commodity prices, which has dramatically affected machinery prices. So we've been able to scale because people need to know what's going on in the market from a valuation standpoint. Should they be buying a specific combine for $300,000, or have the values changed? Is fair market value now $280,000, or is it going up? Is it $320,000? So really bringing that price transparency to market has been key for us in the success to iron comps.
So when you're looking at going into a bank, is your thought process, hey, you're going to be the one loaning the money to buy this combine? You should know what the fair market value is? Or is the thought process that the bank's sitting there saying, this is so a part of all of our lending that we need a better idea of what this collateral's worth, so what are they thinking about on the subscription?
Yeah, so each customer segment has a little bit of a different value prop of what they get to why they want to buy iron comps. A majority of machinery lending comes from a couple of large organizations, Farm Credit, as well as the manufacturers. So John Deere Financial, Case IH Financial. And a majority of our customers use machinery as collateral when they're making farmland and operating line loans. So what they need is an easy tool to get access to understand what those values are. So they can basically use Iron Comps as a instant appraisal service. So they can put a thumb on what the overall value is of 20 pieces in a single click of a button, which is beneficial to helping them secure mortgages and getting those other types of loans done. Dealers don't use it for that. They use it to really, they have more skin in the game. They need to know what these machinery prices are doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So they use it because it's almost real-time data, so they can help drive decision-making. So auctions traditionally it's the most public price. So that can start to change the market more quickly than word of mouth of what a farmer bought a piece of machinery from a dealership. And so as the farmer sentiment changes of what they're willing to pay for it, you can see that directly through auction. And that's the value that we can provide.
So Justin asks a good question. He asked, at what point in the journey did you move to selling to the bank or dealer subscriptions? And when did you feel like you had enough data to be for it to be attractive to them?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's something that we were really trying to figure out how much data we needed to make this product viable. And what we'd settled on was if we can get to 40%, if we can monitor 40% of all transactions on an annual basis, that should be enough. It's kind of a gut feel. That should be enough of transactions that we can get a really good understanding. And we were able to scale that side of the business to about where we are. We're collecting about 55% of all transactions that happen at auction right now. So this year we'll collect a little over $2 billion in farm equipment transactions. We first went to the banks because we entered the market in December of 2019. It's operating loan season. They felt like the first natural customer. Ag economy is not doing very well. It's the time that maybe farmers need to take some operating line and take some equity out on a farm that they might own and really need to value their collateral machinery. So we went to banks first, and with a super small team. We're 11 full-time people right now, but we have 2 people on the sales side. We decided to go to banks first, and dealerships were signing up organically of our free version, trying to figure that out. So that was instant lead gen for us. We quickly kind of opened up the breadth of who we're selling to, because we recognize dealers are watching the markets change, and we have more instant data for them to make better business decisions, and really started going after the dealers. So those have been our 2 markets. And the whole while we've been doing that, we've been not marketing this to farmers at all, but they've been kind of hearing about it word of mouth. And so they're trying to sign up, but our minimum subscription is $2,500 a year. And that's just too expensive for a farmer. And so over the last 3 months, we've needed to get our software mobile optimized to get Iron Comps, the equipment valuation software, to market for the farmer. And we literally got our tier to market 30 minutes ago, and we got our first customer about 20 minutes ago. So that was really exciting right before this call. And
so literally you're launching a product right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, like it's a soft launch, and somebody's been so excited, all I had to do is call them and say, hey, it's available. And they signed up on the spot. But yeah, it's not a full-fledged launch. It's more of a soft launch because, who knows what's going to go wrong. And
that's why I was like, I'm amazed that you're on this call. Cause
I have Slack open too. I have Slack open.
Like, oh, things can be, yeah.
No, we've got enough people on the team to handle one customer not going right. We know them well, so. But yeah, it's super exciting.
So I'm going to ask a question. You said when you had 40% of transactions, you felt like you were going to be able to have enough good data. 40% of the transactions are not taking place on TractorZoom, are they? And if they aren't, how do you verify the other sale prices?
Yeah, good question. So, and by the way, I can't share my video if I needed to share my video. But so yes, we are not on the transaction. We're simply advertising auctions. And so what that means is we're lead gen marketing for an auction company where they advertise on our site. And what I mean by we're tracking 50% of the market is we literally have 420 auction companies using Tractor Zoom to advertise, which represents about 55% of all transactions that happen in farm equipment agriculture. Wow. So we're able to collect that data by way of Tractor Zoom.
Yes, you do. You have a big chunk of the market.
Yeah.
And do you verify those prices in some way, or is it just because you're tied into the auctions, you have an idea? The data, like you said, I'm sure is public in some form.
Actually, so that's kind of our secret sauce. Hopefully nobody on here really hears me say that too loud, but it's not public record like real estate. So real estate transactions are public record. Zillow built their database by scraping public transactions that are on county assessor sites. Off-highway machinery prices or transactions are not public record. So in order for us to build a business of valuing machinery, we had to go get the data. The way to get the data was build a mousetrap called Tractor Zoom, where we could provide value to the auction company to in turn give us the data we need to go value machinery. And I don't mean that to sound so cutthroat as the mousetrap, but it's really being able to provide the industry with a new marketing platform that significantly helps the auction companies. And then we are effectively partners by doing that. And then we're able to build a business as well from the data aspect of really valuing the machinery. And then the whole value chain then goes back to the auction company where they also get access to that database as well.
Interesting.
So it's a big value trade.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that that's really useful for the auction company because they can set prices a lot. They can set their minimum prices and things of that nature. So that's a really good idea. Not that you needed my validation, but it is a good idea. So tell me a little bit about your team. You mentioned Zach. You said that you have 11. Who comes and works for you? Are you taking people right out of Iowa State? Are you finding people who are farmers part-time and tractor zoomers part-time? Like who are your employees? Where do they come from?
So we've always focused on trying to hire. Okay, I shouldn't say always. In the early days, we were getting a lot of our software done overseas. It worked in the beginning, then it didn't work as well for us when we were trying to scale. Things were breaking too quickly and we're fixing bugs from a software perspective. So in 2019, we made the shift of hiring all software engineers and product people in-house and stop relying on kind of outsourced firms from a marketing and software perspective, which was really a big kind of turning point for us because at that point in time we said we're going to hire the best darn people we can, or we're not overpaying. And really what we were able to accomplish is hire a phenomenal team. All of our software engineers come to us from John Deere ISG. Our product lead comes to us from Duala, which is a very well-respected startup here in Des Moines. And it was a total culture change for us because it was no longer focused on KPIs. It was more or less focused on the team who will build the product long-term and continue to invest in the team to where it will allow us to go faster than we ever could before. And I bet we're developing 2 times the rate that we were before, which is great from a product standpoint, but then that allows marketing to operate more efficiently. It allows sales to operate more efficiently and not overpromise and underdeliver on when new features are going to be delivered. We won over a John Deere dealership, one of the larger John Deere dealerships in the United States. They have like 75 locations. And they basically said, hey, if you can deliver, like, I love your software, but if you can deliver this one feature, I'll buy it. But I only have until next week to make a decision. Our engineers were able to spit that out by the next day, and that guy was wowed, and we got the deal done right away. So that's just a testament to be able to have really great quality people on our team to be able to scale. And then what we like to say is where our entire business starts is what we call our auction success team. And they're the ones who onboard and service all of the 420 auction companies that use TractorZoom. They hold auctioneers' hands of literally how to market, making sure the information gets on effectively and efficiently, and in a quality manner. So we get a lot of dirty data from our auction companies, and we go through a lot of processes to clean and standardize that data because it makes our website more SEO friendly, drives more leads to those auctions and auction companies. And then it also gives us a clean database to start from when we need to value that machinery.
That makes sense. You mentioned earlier a little bit about the market and the pandemic. I'm curious what the market's doing right now. Are you seeing prices stay steady? Did they dip instantly because people are like, gosh, I'm nervous about income? Had it been a slow crawl because of crop prices? Like what has the market been doing in 2019, 2020?
So, well, 2019 was a whirlwind too. So you guys are right along the river where the big flooding was. So last year had its own challenges from a weather standpoint. I've actually done quite a bit of research and have talked about this quite a bit. What we saw so let's look at kind of year over year. Last spring 2019, farmers were in the dumps because the crops were no good. You couldn't get crops in the field because the ground was so saturated with water. And then all of a sudden we had some trade war resolution and this farm market facilitation program, the MFP payment, come out, and corn shot up by 50 cents and farmers were feeling really good and had money in the bank. And then trade resolution with China fell through the floor again. So we had extreme volatility last year, and USDA was saying we're gonna have a smaller crop than what most farmers were thinking, and then the crop actually was larger. So in December, farmers got their first government payment, which was something like $30 an acre, or kind of across the board in the Midwest, which is a significant amount. And then the next thing that we saw was trade resolution around Christmas time was looking up. Farmers had a really big year, and that the machinery prices held really firm. And actually grew, like harvest machinery in December, those values grew significantly, depending on different asset classes. And then we had COVID. And what we were implying was, okay, this is not going to be good, especially if, corn soybean prices lost about 20% of their value in 3 weeks in March. So we were actually predicting machinery values to start to fall. And then we realized, well, auctions can't have crowds. How are you going to sell auction? How are you going to sell machinery? Well, online, but not everybody adopted online bidding like eBay. So there was 20% of auction inventory that got postponed to later this year. So you have an influx of, you have little supply coming to the market, but you still have relatively the same demand. So that held machinery prices. And then we're starting to see those prices starting to dip right now. As that extra supply is coming back on the market, we're still recognizing and still having lower commodity prices than break-even farming really needs. We've had a little bit of an uptick, but nothing significant. And we're starting to see more stress. We've seen some dealerships need to liquidate inventory, likely from cash flow purposes, because they have carrying costs. They pay interest on the equipment on their yard. There's one John Deere dealer in central Iowa that sold $14.5 million of equipment in one day. There's 75 combines liquidated in one day. It was a massive event. We've seen another couple of dealerships look at the prices that they brought. They're relatively strong, and so they're starting to book auctions. Now I'm a little bit fearful of exactly what happened in 2019, as we had so much inventory come on the market at the same time that you oversupply the market, what can be absorbed of a specific quality. So think in terms of like cars, if you bring 10,000 Chevy Silverados at 100,000 miles each to market, everybody's like, well, I don't really want one, but if it's cheap, I'll buy one because I'm really looking for one with 60,000 miles. Same thing in the equipment. You look at that usage demand. And so in the last year, we haven't had a lot of low-houred machines. And now all of a sudden we have these deal liquidations. Now we're pushing all the inventory to low-houred stuff. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen to the market. So long-winded answer. I'm passionate about it, so I could probably go on forever.
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of people on the call and the webinar that are interested in these views. I do have a couple other questions. You know, so often people will get into farm machinery and heavy machinery as a path to get to broader categories. Do you see tractors moving into other advanced machinery? So whether that's construction or heavy equipment, anything down those paths?
Yeah.
Is that a goal? Is that kind of how do you think about that?
Yeah, most definitely. Even if we were really sticking to the ag demographic, it's a natural segment to get to construction equipment as well as earth moving equipment, I should say, in the construction aspect, as well as the Class 8 semi-truck market. You know, if we're just staying ag, farmers they still have semi-trucks and trailers to haul grain. Many of them have bulldozers, excavators, skid steers, fix and terrace and tile, odd jobs on the farm. So, you know, those are natural asset classes, but that farmers and they're supporting insurance companies, finance companies, dealerships need to know as well. But yeah, we see a direct opportunity in getting into the construction and truck markets and selling to those demographics as well. And it really opens up our market opportunity once we get there.
So inside of like kind of big equipment auctions, you have players like Ritchie Brothers and other folks. Are you how do I say this right? There are a relatively small number of really big players. For the most part, they've stayed out of farm because it's small. Is that accurate, or am I like, are you worried when you move up market that you're going to be facing some bigger competitors?
No, not necessarily. So like when you think of a Ritchie Brothers, they could potentially be a customer of Tractor Zoom, right? They're in the auction business. They're huge. They're massive. They're publicly traded. I don't know what their market cap is right now, $3 or $4 billion. But yeah, they still need leads. They're not very strong in the United States for agriculture equipment. I think they have initiatives to move into agriculture, especially with the stress, and that's what auction companies do best, is liquidate equipment. They have a super strong hold in Canada, super dominant in yellow iron and construction across the entire world. But yes, I would definitely tend to gather and really see that the 80-20 rule applies here. The top 20% of auction companies do 80% of the business. I think that's true in a lot of different industries. I would even tend to gather that it might even be 90-10 in some cases. So yeah, the big auction companies are still growing at a pretty intense pace. And it can be good and it can be bad, but yeah, I don't foresee us when we go into other market or asset classes that we're going to run into too much of headwinds, what we see right now. I mean, our competitors are anybody else that's valuing machinery, and we're doing it in a different way. You know, if you think of, if you're familiar with TrueCar or Car Gurus and how they've been able to take market share away from Kelley Blue Book, on the end of the spectrum of transparency, that's more where we lie than Kelley Blue Book. We don't just tell you what your tractor's worth. We tell you what we think it's worth, and then we show you the comparable sales of how we arrived at that decision.
Interesting. So you've raised venture capital. How did you do that? Do you want me to give you a cleaner question?
I mean, just ask people for the money.
So ag startup.
No, it's an art. It's definitely an art. So the way we did it is we looked at and we raised venture capital when we were pre-revenue. And that was the hardest thing, is to get somebody to believe in what you're doing and the data you're collecting is actually worth something, right? So investors want to see, okay, you're collecting this data. Now prove to me it's worth something by selling it. And we had never sold anything of this data until 2019. We raised 2 rounds of capital, $1 million and $1.5 million, after we raised a kind of a friends and family early on. And I think it's just finding the right partners who really believe in what you're doing. And you have to sell. I mean, when you raise money, you're selling part of your company. So it's really getting people to believe in what you're doing and that it is going to be worth something. Whatever industry you're in, the way we had to do it is, here's the data, here are the decisions that need to be done, here's what's not being done in the marketplace today, and here's the opportunity that we see and why we can fit in this market.
Number one, I'm very impressed that you raised money pre-revenue. I have also raised venture capital. So I was asking it, so I get accused on the chats occasionally that I lead people to the questions. So I'm trying to ask more general questions, but I have never worked with Ag Startup Engine, but I am aware of them existing in Ames and that they've been very active with regards to a bunch of different types of ag startups, particularly in central Iowa. What has it been like to work with them? How would you advise somebody, if you're from Western Iowa, to get in touch with them? What are the sorts of things that you think are important to them?
Yeah, awesome. I actually just got off of a roundtable meeting that we do. Ag Startup Engine does a roundtable meeting once a month where all the entrepreneurs that they invest in, founders, get to hop on there and just share what's going well, what's not going well, ask for advice, things you're looking for. Just the connections you get through the Ag Startup Engine are great. I know a couple of people who are bootstrapping and then said, hey, can you give me an introduction? And next thing you know is Ag Startup Engine's invested. I'm happy to make an introduction to the Ag Startup Engine. If anybody listening is looking for an introduction, just get a hold of Tom, or Tom can shoot that to me, however that makes sense. You know, what they're looking for is how can you add value to their partners, and more importantly, making sure that they're the right fit. Just like every other investor, you have to fit their thesis, and they need to know that they can bring you value other than just writing a check. And that's aside from everything that is, business sense and investing sense. It needs to be a dual partnership, really. And they're starting to build an awesome network that you're able to reach out to. So if I need a connection to Farm Credit, there's Farm Credit sponsoring them, right? So I can get one way, shape, or form an introduction to Farm Credit if I hadn't had one. So that network runs really deep. And the former company I used to work with is an investor there, so that was my introduction. And that's probably the other aspect of how we were able to raise money is maybe in my previous career and really understanding the market and getting an early traction in a dual side marketplace just by knowing the auction companies in the market.
Interesting. I'm going to ask if the audience has any questions. I feel like I've sort of dominated, but Kyle, I'm really enjoying this. You're explaining a lot of things that I've wondered about, so I appreciate that. Are there any questions out there? If not, I'm just going to keep talking because I got 4 or 5 more things that I'm curious about.
Are any of my answers surprising?
Surprising. Not really surprising. There's some things that you've said that I think you articulated very well. So one of the things that you articulated that I thought is really useful, for example, from that last thing about Ag Startup Engine, is the idea that investors really need not just to be writing a check, but to be providing value in a different way. They want that. Like, this isn't just like it's useful. They don't want to just write checks because that's not fun for them. And it usually doesn't give them a way to affect the outcome of the investment. I think that that's a really good insight. I think that's helpful for people who are thinking about raising capital. I thought your read on the market was not, I can look at corn and soybean prices. I'm long commodities right now personally. So I find it very interesting when people are like, here's what I'm seeing in the market. It's soft here, et cetera. So some of those sorts of things I think are nice to hear from somebody I wouldn't normally talk to about this, if that makes sense, because it either validates or forces me to kind of think differently. So we've got a couple questions. Justin asks about what it's been like to work with Innova Memphis. They've done, I think, 8 deals in Iowa over the last year and a half. So they've been very active. I think they're the most active Iowa investor right now. Obviously, they're based in Memphis. What do you think about Innova Memphis?
They're
Is
awesome.
it your chair at Innova Memphis?
Yeah, he's the original founding partner at Innova Memphis. I think they all, after they invested, I think they all flipped a coin who's going to be on the board, and we happened to get Ken. But the thing I really appreciate about Innova is they have, each of the partners there have a totally different skill set that they can bring to the table. For example, Dean knows just loads of different investors and sales strategies. Ken, who is on our board and actually chairman of our board, really understands how to build a sales team, how to make decisions and pressure test decisions that you might make by asking the right questions. The thing I've always appreciated is sometimes you'll talk to investors or potential investors and all they'll want to do is tell you how they see it versus what I personally like to see in my novice experience of leading. But I always like to see leaders asking questions to solve problems versus telling you and demanding how it's going to be done. That's what Innova's done best. And they were our early believers early on. So I'm able to pick up the phone and have conversations with them anytime, and they can help me think through whatever issues or challenges we're having, and then make other investor introductions when you need to raise more money.
That makes sense. Kind of a separate question is about Mecum, and that they're a big player in the auction industry. Is there a way that you've looked at working with them?
Yeah, Mecum's huge. I don't know how many hundreds of millions of dollars of cars and classic cars they sell. Mecum has a really special classic tractor auction over in Davenport. They call it Gone Farmin'. That's not really our industry. Mecum sells a lot of classics. That's a massive company to try to partner with. Unfortunately, they're a little bit outside of our industry and realm. We're not great at valuing classic tractors because we just don't see enough volume sell there. We're better understanding the values of anything built after 1960, really.
So I have been having some interesting conversations with some ag tech funders that are tied to the idea that they think there's going to be more autonomous vehicles and potentially smaller ones. What do you see happening over the next, let's call it decade, with regards to machinery in infield machinery? So whether that's a tractor or a combine or a sprayer, what do you think the trends are suggesting? Still getting bigger? Change, everything's automated? What do you think?
Well, and that's something that we debate pretty frequently. Ryan Rusnick, our marketing manager, is just a tractor guru, loves machinery. So he and I debate this every once in a while. Machinery has gotten so big and so powerful. I'm not sure how much bigger it can get. And the biggest restrictor is traveling up and down a road. If you made a tractor any wider, you're not going to be able to travel from field to field. You're going to have to change all your farm drive entrances. Sure, you can make 1,000 horse tractor and put 4 wheels on each side of it, but you can't get it anywhere any efficiently. And then the next thing is, so that's like the cap, in my opinion. You can make things more productive. You can go faster, but not bigger, really. But there is a really big push on looking at this smaller machinery, which can operate in less ideal conditions. You're trying to operate a 50,000 pound tractor and a little bit of moisture, you're going to start to create compaction, whereas you can use one of my friends, Michael Ott over at Rantizo, is starting to create drones where it's precision spraying, and you can launch, I think he was just awarded the first swarm application where he can launch multiple drones at once, and he can go spray a field almost as efficiently as a big Higgy sprayer using less chemical. So I think technologies and innovations like that will start to catch on, especially if ROI is proven. I'm sure you know, Tom, many farmers, I'd say the majority of them don't like to be first-time adopters of new technology. But once they see their neighbor or somebody else down the road be successful with it or hear good things, they'll start to adopt. I think that you'll see other innovations that aren't your tractor or planter or combine start to get automated and be smaller.
Interesting. What I've heard, and I'm taking no position on this, but I want to kind of ask towards stuff. What I have heard is there's sort of a move towards the idea of having the autonomous farm. And inside of that autonomy, I'm curious how it would affect your business. Do you think it increases because there's going to be more auctions, a lot more equipment, and will take a long time to adopt? Do you think it decreases because people buy something and then kind of leave? Does it change the number of buyers? How does a shifting market affect Tractor Zoom or Iron Comps?
It's just a new type of technology coming to market, right? So it's we value all used machinery. We don't value new machinery. The manufacturer sets that price and they get those deals done the way they want. So we're looking at the used market. Naturally, we just start to have to track the market. Whatever comes to market, whether they're Batmobiles, autonomous sprayers, whatever's coming to market in agriculture, once we see enough of those transactions, we can start to track it. But we have to be on the know of what these trends are and watching these come across the used market. I think as you start to get into more autonomy, like smart ags using existing equipment to be able to plug in a device to make the existing machine, the tractor, autonomous. But OEMs are going to have to start spitting out a lot of, maybe you've seen Case IH's prototype autonomous tractor where there's no cab, no driver, nothing like that. It's going to take a lot of time for OEMs to start churning out this new technology into the market before it's not like an overnight shift, right? So we don't have to be on our toes that quickly. We'll see it coming for years.
So one of the questions I like to ask people,
I'd say the biggest one on that, sorry to interrupt. I'd say the biggest one is aftermarket options on or add-ons to machines now that market's getting hot. So like having to value a planter with specific precision planting equipment on it was one. And now we're starting to see this new, like Blue River technology entering sprayers where it's see and spray, spot spray. Instead of just spraying an overall swath, you can pay an arm and a leg for this new technology to identify a weed as you're driving 10 miles an hour and just spray the weed. That'll be big technology that people that people pay for. So that'll be something new that we just have to figure out what it's worth and how do we value it on a machine.
So I'm going to ask you a slightly broader question that you can talk, it can be ag tech related. I like it because the answers are always way out of bounds. So you don't have to go out of bounds. They end up being strange. What is the innovation that has you most excited over the next 10 years?
God, I can barely look 2 years out. So, what we do in learning, how we've been able to learn is really looking at other industries. So automotive is a larger industry. It's been more adopted. It's a much more mature market. So actually we can learn a lot of successes and failures over there. One of the biggest things that we see, maybe it's not a technology, but I think we're in agriculture. So my personal opinion is agriculture technology is 5 to 7 years behind what Silicon Valley is or automotive market, just other markets, right? I don't think that's due to a lack of innovation. I think that's due to a lack of grower adoption. There's a lot of skeptics. There's a lot of crappy products being thrown down farmers' throats, and I think it's just left a bad taste. So some of the things that we track really diligently is data transparency. I think that'll really start to change how people in our industry do business. And as we have a tough ag economy like we have right now, data and data transparency will really help build better farmers as better business people and making them more profitable long term. So yeah, we'll start to see larger farms, but I think more importantly, we'll start to see more profitable farms as you get people making better decisions using data and data transparency.
Interesting. I'm going to ask you 2 more questions, unless the audience has some questions they'd like to ask. I'm going to tell you both of them ahead of time so that you can kind of either answer them at the same time or choose to break them into pieces. My first question is, I personally spend a lot of time looking at entrepreneurial ecosystems, and I think I have about 5 projects in the Midwest right now. Every single one of them is targeting ag tech. So part of what I want to know is, if the ecosystem around Des Moines could do one thing better, what would it be? With the idea that kind of more universally that applies probably to lots of different markets in the Midwest. And then the second question is, what can we do that would help you? So they may be the same answer, but they probably aren't. But I'm giving you the opportunity to answer both questions.
Yeah, that's good. I was actually on this is something the Ag Startup Engine also did. That's cool. They connected us with Billy Hunt of the Cultivation Corridor, and we were able to have a roundtable discussion with Mike Nag, Secretary of Ag in the state of Iowa, yesterday. And it was actually very similar answers to what we would have spoken about there. Is some of the biggest things that I see in the opportunities that we need to hit on in the state of Iowa is being able to recruit or train better software engineers. So I think the challenge that we have in Iowa is a lack of really great talent. And then we also have a lack of risk talent, meaning as a startup, cash is king. Like, you got to have cash to be successful or really go fast. You can't go start spending all this money everywhere, otherwise you're gonna be broke, and nobody's really gonna feel sorry for you. So, obviously, I'm sure a lot of people know one of the things you can do is incentivize employees with stock options, and that's where you can really start to create wealth. Silicon Valley has had that figured out 20 years ago of software engineers figuring out, okay, I'm gonna go work for this company for 4 years. I'm gonna build up my equity. I'm gonna invest, and then I'm gonna leave. I'm just gonna go do it over and over and over and over again. And that's created a lot of wealth in people who don't necessarily found businesses. So from a startup ecosystem, I would love to see us figuring out how we can brand the Midwest as somewhere to come. The state of Iowa was just ranked or Des Moines, I think, was just ranked as the top 5 city places to live. Ag tech dollars have exploded. I think they've 8x'd in the last couple of years in terms of venture capital dollars invested in ag tech. But there's just so much opportunity here. It's a great place to live. We really need to figure out how to brand the Midwest as being a great place to start a business, especially if you're in agriculture, or in Des Moines if you're in insurance. Like, your customers are here. You can walk out your back door and go talk to a farmer. Whereas if you start it in Silicon Valley or Boston or Texas, not necessarily have that opportunity. So I'd really love to see ways of how we can try to recruit more and better talent here in the Midwest from a technical perspective.
So I think that's a really interesting question, because I think you touched on a couple pieces. Number one, recruiting, the training, but also helping those who get recruited and trained to understand that there's an opportunity to create wealth.
Yes.
In a startup. not in a different way than sort of getting paid possibly a higher salary at principal or one of the other large employers. So how do we help you? What can we do to help you?
Spread the word. If you know farmers, dealers, bankers, insurance companies, we're actively selling iron comps. So that's my selfish plug of we love customer introductions or spreading the word of what we're up to. Number two, this is maybe a sort of half ask, if you will. One of the key pieces I think we're missing on our team is somebody who's very talented in digital marketing and ad spend and optimizing marketing funnels. So as we're going into launching iron comps for farmers, it's a $300 a year product. We can't afford from an acquisition cost to go hire salespeople to go knock on doors. So we have to acquire customers digitally or help provide value to those customers digitally. So we're really looking for some help on the digital marketing aspect and optimizing our funnel. And I don't think we're ready to hire a full-time employee, but some part-time consulting is really what we're looking for. So that's one thing. So spreading the word, and if anybody knows anybody great at digital marketing, would love to have a conversation.
Cool. That's great. This has been really informative and interesting, Kyle. I want to say thank you on behalf of the folks who are here, and just really appreciate you, because I think you told us a bunch of stuff, and I took about 10 pages of notes. What I can do is I can commit that I do have a fairly large bank that I can connect you to. So after this, I'll make sure that we round that up, because there is somebody that is specifically responsible for ag related stuff. I can also connect you to the farm credit folks here in Omaha. So hopefully that will be helpful. It may just be spinning wheels. I don't see any other questions from anyone. So I just want to say thank you very much, everyone, for being here. This was TechBrew for Western Iowa, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks. See y'all later.
Thank you, Tom. Really appreciate it.